Board of Education to order, because we have our preliminary matters to get out of the way first.
Shazam.
And so we'll start by, with a roll call, please.
Anita?
Yes.
Sean?
Yes.
Sylvia?
Present.
Steve?
Yes.
Ann?
Yes.
I'll acknowledge persons present, though she just acknowledged herself. And now we will get down to part 2, our organizational business and the election of our 2017 president. Do I have a nomination, please?
I'd like to nominate Aida Mohammed.
Second?
Second.
Got that?
It's a tie for second.
Are there any other nominations? So we'll close the nominations and we'll take.
I would like to nominate Dawn.
Don't make me use this. So can we have a roll call on the nomination, please?
Sean?
Yes.
Sylvia?
Yes.
Steve?
Yes.
Ann?
Yes.
Aida?
Yes, thank you, everybody.
All right.
Thank you.
And now I think,
Oh, no, I think
That was it?
No,
That
I
was
think
your,
you have to keep going.
that was your.
really? I thought now that
Yeah,
you
then you
are,
have a.
you are now the president? Okay, fair enough. Well,
Enjoy it
You didn't anticipate that.
we're going to move to 2.2 and the election of our vice president. May I have a
Excellent.
nomination, please?
I'll nominate Sean.
All right.
And a second?
Second.
Thank you. Are there any other nominations? We'll close the nominations, and can we have a vote on that, please?
Sylvia?
Yes.
Steve?
Yes.
Ann?
Yes.
Aida?
Yes.
Sean?
Yeah, thank you.
Very good. Well, my time here is brief. I'm going to give my farewell address
Good
now.
job.
I'm gonna start crying.
Did you enjoy it, Steve?
He went to my head. I should do that again.
All right, thank you, everybody. All right, here we go. Onward with our first 2017 Alice Springs Board of Education meeting. Okay, this is the administration portion of the consent calendar 3.1 through 3.18. Is there a motion?
So moved?
I'm still trying to get my electronic one open, I'm sorry.
3.118.
3.18, yes.
Board
18.
agenda.
Yeah,
There we go.
yeah.
Oh, 1.8.
3.18.
I'm not so good with the math there, huh?
Oh, is this,
I'm only the vice president.
is this the one where we
Yeah, we're gonna.
motion first and then discuss through them after that? Okay, I got it. Sorry about that.
No, that's okay.
Did I have
Is there a
that?
motion and a second?
Second.
Okay. So, the 3.1 is the appointment of personnel and board committee members, so we'll pull that out. And then I'm going to also pull out 3.14, which is the board operating protocols.
3.1.
3.1, 3.2, and 3.14.
Oh,
14, yes.
Oh,
Really
okay.
sorry, confusing.
I got it, okay, thank you.
Okay, so we'll start with 3.1, the appointments of personnel. We are looking for treasurer pro tem. Sean has been doing that. Would you like
I'm happy to do that.
Great,
I'm continuing that role.
great.
Good.
Looking for our student achievement liaison.
Well, I thought since Evan did that before and I'm taking his place, I'd be happy to do that.
Great.
Awesome.
Legislative liaison.
Sure.
Great. Oh, gosh, this is great. Village council liaison.
Yep.
Steve?
Sure.
Cool. All right, moving into the appointment of board members to committees. Student review board, I've been doing that, happy to continue. Actually, I enjoy doing that because it gives me contact with the students, which I don't have so much of anymore, so that's nice. Yellow Springs Endowment for Education, Sylvia, you?
I enjoy that and I'm happy to keep doing it unless you all would suggest otherwise.
Great. Insurance Committee, Sean?
Yeah, well, we won't meet this year, but I'll serve on that.
Oh wait, then I want that one.
Wellness Committee, Sylvia, you want to continue that?
That's
or
fine, because it's
anybody
not
else?
real, I mean, unless someone else wants it, I'm happy to keep doing it. It's not very burdensome at
Okay,
all, really.
is that good with everybody, all right? Yellow Springs Public School Fund, and you took that
I can
on when
stay.
you came on board, so that's great. Faculty Advisory Committee. Wanna continue
Yeah,
that,
I
Sean?
really enjoy that opportunity to connect with the faculty, so happy to do that.
And the Crisis Plan Committee, I've been doing that, and that only meets very irregularly too, so I forget where we are, but there have been some new changes, so I know we're gonna be.
We're gonna have, you'll probably have at least one meeting this year with that, so.
All right, moving on to
Excuse me.
Policy Committee. Sean and I have been doing that for quite a while. Happy to continue to do that. Anybody want to do policy?
Yeah, if you're happy with us continuing.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Open
That's
enrollment.
work right there. That's tough one.
Steve
Yeah,
and I
that is some work right
Yeah,
there.
that's
I really
fine.
wanna read that
I'm
stuff
good with that
the one
too.
time.
And then the 2020 Advisory Implementation Committee, I don't even,
Do we need one other person in there?
I can-
It's a committee that's never even met, right?
Not as far as I'm aware.
Well, we
Stood
already-
up.
But it will.
But it could still be a standing
well, and
committee.
hopefully after the meeting on the, whatever
Yeah.
date that is. that we're
I would
Yeah.
think we'd be getting
February.
closer and closer to it actually meeting.
Yeah.
Once we get closer to
Right.
2020.
Don't you think?
Yeah.
We might as well keep it on the
Well, yeah,
I
books.
can do that. for
Yeah, great.
Scott and
Okay,
that's fine.
perfect.
Probably won't meet this year.
Yeah, we can't.
You might, there's a good chance we might actually.
Actually, I was gonna say, I really think
We
we're
have
creeping
that.
up on needing to
Yeah,
have a
there's
meeting.
some work
We
that we
have
probably
that,
have to do.
we have
yeah.
that 2020
I
update
think you
meeting
can- yeah.
scheduled,
Mhm.
so
There you go.
that's like at the end of February, so maybe there will be something.
Yeah, we'll talk about that probably later in the agenda, see
Yeah.
if there's something
Where is it?
specific we want to do for that meeting that might get us to the point where we start to,
Mhm.
the committee will have to meet.
Wherever it is. I can't find it. There it is, on February 8th. Okay, right, so that's taken care of.
Okay.
I think this is really an important piece because previously we've had some issues, so I'd just like to take the time out for 3.14. These are our board leadership protocols that we agree to every year. And just really quickly, I mean, it's a pretty extensive list and we have it on file if anybody wants to see it, but basically the headings are positively engage in respectful dialogue, assuming the best in one another. 2 is follow the chain of command. 3 is avoid micromanaging. 4, the board will keep the superintendent and treasurer out front leading the charge. 5, the board is the liaison between the community and the schools. 6, the board acts collectively with expectations and evaluation. 7, the board will annually conduct a self-assessment evaluation, and the board will engage in its own development at least twice a year. I'm going to ask everybody to sign and date this, and I say this publicly because I think it's helpful for the public to recognize what the board's roles are and how we try to function and the importance of trying to adhere to these protocols. And I think we've been quite successful here recently in the last several years. So I would just like to let the public know about that. And we do this every year at the organizational
You
meeting.
want me to sign it and pass it back?
Yeah.
Yep.
All right, anybody else have any reason to pull anything out, or anybody want to discuss anything here? This is the usual first of the year meeting.
Do I get mileage for my bike when I ride down to the meeting?
Just get a little bit more help.
You get half of the.
So,
yeah.
yeah, the mileage, I think, Don's, did you say this or did somebody tell me this? The mileage rate went down a little bit, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It has been for 2 years in a row.
And then the time and place of the meeting, I want to make sure everybody's okay with that. Obviously, before we go forward, this is the time to change it. It may never be changed, so.
Yep.
All right.
You mean like second
Second
Thursday?
Thursdays.
Mhm.
Okay, so moving on to, so we need to have a roll call.
Yeah.
Sorry. Steve,
Yes.
Anne,
Yes.
Aida,
Yes,
Sean,
Yes.
Sylvia.
Yes.
all right, that's the adoption of 3.1 through 3.18. Okay, moving on to the consent calendar, no, excuse me, we're taking a 5-minute, oh no,
Budget hearing.
budget, sorry, we're on to
We can skip it.
No,
4.1, the budget hearing.
I didn't have to do it. We can skip it.
That's
Okay.
really what I was most excited about tonight.
Are you?
So, yeah.
I'm really excited to present it to
I
you.
was, yeah.
Sorry.
That and someone from Planned Parenthood would be here.
Yeah.
Okay, the tax budget is required. We have to submit our budget for the year to the county auditor's office. And what they do is they send us the first couple of pages, which I'll go through here in a second. And they send us what they feel that our taxes are going to, what will be collected during the calendar year 2017. But the tax budget is actually starting in July 1st of 2017, and it's on a fiscal year basis, so it's really basically the next year and a half. So they just put out what they think our taxes are going to be, what our tax rates are going to be levied for the year on the tax bills, and then I put in there what the budget is for the year, what we need for debt retirement money for the year, and our permanent improvement for the year, and then basically all of our other funds. So I'm not going to spend a lot of time on it because over the past few years, the auditor's office has allowed us to just turn in the 5-year forecast for our budget, so you already know all about that. The only new information on here is basically the first couple pages you see, which are just what the tax rates are going to be. Our bond tax rate went from, I think, 2.9 to 2.0 this year. I don't know if it's mainly because we have a higher tax base and they feel like we can collect the money. They also sometimes try to collect a little bit less if we have a cash balance sitting in there. I have to tell them every year what our carryover cash balance is, and then they'll collect a little bit less so that we're tapping into that, don't have a big amount in our bond retirement fund at the end of the bond in 2027 when we make our last payment. So I think he's probably trying to spend some of that down. So the tax rate did go down. Actually, all of our tax rates went down a little bit, and then we're at the 20 mil floor, so the main rate can't go down any more than what it is. So the first page is just the what the auditor thinks that we're going to collect for taxes this year. You can scroll down. And then the second page is all of our tax levies that are out there right now. Those, the ones that total 47.5, those are the ones that are all really at 20 right now, because they've been factored down since then. That's the initial rate that they were authorized at. And then our emergency levy was 8.15 last year, I think. So this year it's 7.9. Our PI is usually 1.2. That's changed. And then the emergency levy is at 7. That was, I think, it's 7.2 last year. Now they put $457,500 because he can only certify what's going through the end of fiscal year 2017-18. So it's the last 6 months of this calendar year. So if we don't pass it in May, then it's got to come off of there if we do, or we go again in November. But if we do pass it in May, then that will be updated for the whole amount for the year. So keep going.
Can I say one thing if you don't mind?
Sure.
So I think it's important for the public here. 47.5 mils is the total millage collected outside the 10 mil limitation. But so one thing I hear from people a lot is, well, we collect so much millage compared to other school districts. Well, the truth is, we collected part of that 47 mils, all of that 47.5 mils is from 1969 to 1982, based on the property valuation at that time. So it's not today's millage, it's millage at that time. And so while we have a lot of actual voted millage that we collect, the effective millage is 20 mils. So we're really at the very minimal floor in terms of effective millage that we're actually collecting from our community. That's why we have the need for the emergency levies beyond that, because we're at the very minimum effect in terms of what we're actually collecting relative to current dollars.
Because what they try to keep the same is what the taxes that were collected that year that it was first voted in. And the only new money you can get is on a new property. So it's that 2.121 million is what usually stays around the same. And then they lower the taxes to collect around that. So Mario was making a good point. Okay. This is our bond retirement fund. It just shows the taxes that are going to be collected and then the payments that we have to make over the next year and a half. Keep going. I won't go through this fast because everything is, it's not very exciting from here on out. The permanent improvement fund, the same thing. It just shows what amount we'll collect every year, which is anywhere between $140,000 and $150,000. And then we've been typically spending that on repairs, roofs, building improvements. We're going to take our security systems out of there. And we do have some roofing needs, so we're going to be looking at that and talking about that. So that's just my estimate of what we'll spend over the next couple of years, okay? This is all of our other funds. You don't see our other funds very often, they're in my monthly reports, but all I'm putting in there is in fiscal year 17-18, what I think our beginning cash balance will be for those funds, how much money we will take in, and how much money we will spend. It's really kind of just a guesstimate. And I don't foresee any big changes in those, so they're pretty stagnant from what they've been before, so. Okay. Our auditor likes to know money that we're taking out of the general fund and transferring into other funds. We've only done the lunchroom fund and the athletic fund. The change that I made is if you look in 15-16, we did an advance to the lunchroom fund of $6,230, which has to be paid back. And then this year, our break-even guarantee showed that we really broke even for the fiscal year, and I did check those numbers, and we did pretty much break even for the fiscal year. So what I would like to do at the end of this year is transfer any negative balance in there to even it up entirely, and then we'll really be able to see if we're losing money every year, if we're really breaking even. So I did change that from an advance to a transfer. We're not going to pay back. And then starting in 17-18 and on out, I don't know what we'll do. It just depends on if we are going to show a loss and that break-even guarantee kicks in and they'll reimburse us, then I'll make it an advance again and pay it back once we get that money from Sodexo. So this is just something the Greene County Auditor likes to see. Okay. That's just information on our bonds and our House Bill 264. It just shows what our principal outstanding is, what needs to be paid off.
So this is another one probably to talk about too, so that folks understand. And one of the questions that I've heard from several community members as we've talked about new construction is, didn't we just recently approve new construction on buildings, the high school and here? And the answer is yes. Just a few classrooms here. This room actually we're in right now is one of those. And then some of those classrooms in the back of the high school were approved by voters in 2000, as you can see. And then the construction was done in around 2002. So, and it was a total amount, it looks like, of $2,374,000 at the time. And so I think that's what I'm reading, right?
It was a $4 million project.
Okay, gotcha.
And that's the principal outstanding.
Right, that's what's left right now,
Yeah.
that's right, yeah. So
Just my impression, this would be a subjective thing. 2002 to me, sadly, doesn't sound recent anymore, like I'm
Yeah.
realizing that's not. But I can see in a way how people would feel like it's recent, but honestly, that's really quite a while ago at this point. And, you know.
I'm hitting it head on because I think that'll be a question that comes up quite
Yeah.
a bit, I think, over the next few months. And so it'll be something we have to be able to really address and sort of educate the community about what that means. And just because you added a couple classrooms doesn't mean that the original building that was here 60 years ago has gotten
all
improvements in the
upgraded or
process
anything,
as well. You know, I think that's an important point to have. So, okay, go ahead, I'm sorry.
Okay, and then the next page. That's just, I insert the 5-year forecast and submit that. That is the tax budget, and I kind of had to laugh because when the county auditor sends us their first couple pages of the tax budget, the form was revised in November of 1986. So we've been using the same form for 30 years. The tax budget is very antiquated, so, but I don't care if anybody knows that. It needs to go away. That concludes my report, and then Aida, I need your signature at the end of the meeting.
Okay, great, thank you. All right, so now we're moving into the adoption of that budget. So is there a motion?
So moved.
Second?
All right, roll call.
Ann,
Yes.
Aida,
Yes.
Sean,
Yes.
Sylvia,
Yes.
Pete.
Yes.
Thank you.
All right, so that ends the portion of this organizational business meeting that occurs at the beginning of every year. And we will be moving into our regular board meeting at 7 o'clock. So we're going to have about a 10-minute recess now. And just to remind people, the camera's running so that Jacob does not have to turn it off and start it up
No
again.
wacky hijinks.
So, maybe you want to shoot it down to the floor or something. Starts dancing.
Right. Hello, people.
People.
Don't get no respect. You're lost in Dangerfield.
So, it doesn't surprise me that you two know each other.
Yeah. Hi, Miss Sue. I'm so happy to see your name here.
Is that part of the pad of yours or something?
Hi, Eli.
Hello, how are you?
All right, how are you?
Good.
Are you
Wow.
one of the Miss
Cool.
Connie to teach?
I am.
So, in the last couple of
Stay.
years,
Delicious.
you probably got
Is it
to know me as a parent.
Yes.
Yeah.
No.
Maybe Genevieve did.
Selling
So I
you.
know two different people. I have Harper, who's a special ed kid.
Uh-huh.
You guys clean
I
shaven?
haven't met Harper.
I was like,
yet.
always.
Yeah, I know, it's a bold new look.
I'm trying to.
Did Gum Springs health classes for the first time about 10 years ago.
Oh, okay.
And so as my role changed,
Gotcha.
Well,
and I became more
some
involved in my training new religious. I've been training my people ever since.
Okay.
So,
No, I was just so excited when,
I didn't want to create two events.
Well, we can have
and Harper was gonna be there, so I was like, okay, I need to know, because we wanna be like.
Miami has a gender.
Doing all that at home.
You want to be able to follow up.
Stop,
right?
all support, but you always feel like you have to start off like,
That's why.
and I want all this stuff so
That's
we
right.
can
I'm not-
support
I'm not
at home,
teaching
because
this
I
person.
want, he needs to
So
know
it's
it,
a
but it
very
also.
upper level thing that you
Yeah.
came across.
No.
Maybe not.
Oh,
Maybe.
thesis hours.
Yeah,
that kind of
Exactly, so, but I was
Yeah,
really.
so I have,
big about.
I forget how many
Being
masters
back in our
that I'm working on.
Well, and you're still here,
Finishing
so
up, and then
right before, I mean, I
There's
just
an
only been gone
honors
for,
thesis, I have students
at this
in
point,
that
which
as
I
well.
lived there last
That'll
Wednesday,
take
and then I started on
spread
Monday.
that way.
So I know it's so big.
But
Like,
those
you want
are
me to sign
formal
that?
It
courses.
was a really hard
But I think they showed up in the
decision.
system.
15 years after my
Yeah.
Next term.
Yeah, that's a lot.
into
That's a
it.
lot.
This part of the meeting, was it exciting?
As always.
Who's the new president? Steve? Congratulations.
No, you know what, they took it away from me.
They took it away from you. Sure thing. It was a coup.
Okay.
So,
I guess
what
it's
I
on.
wanted
People
was
got pretty
more,
dissatisfied with my leadership in about 28 seconds, so.
You're there for those few days.
Well, I mean, everything
Yeah,
I
and then
have.
If only it were that easy.
I mean, your rule can be, you know, compared to the reign of terror in France. I mean,
Right, exactly. People started, yeah. That's what I
It was
heard.
really cute, the pound was gavel.
Like a gavel, you know? I'm gonna get it on my classroom.
A bigger one?
Yeah.
Hey, you're gonna have this.
Yeah, it came out. Yeah, so.
Right.
Was when,
Well, welcome.
oh, what was,
Welcome, welcome.
who was the representative from
I paid for.
That's what we were supposed to.
They wanted
Springfield?
right? Like in their job, totally new.
Yeah, they stepped down last year.
Well, and you're coming in middle of the school year.
Yeah, he was a federal, at the federal level.
Oh,
Cried all the
Or
time.
like I've done the right thing.
Thank you.
And I am so.
Yeah, Boehner. He took over as Speaker of the House. It was a joke how much bigger his gavel was than
And
Nancy's.
you know my house, right? Yeah.
But I don't live there anymore. Right, you don't live there.
I want to hear me now.
I went to-
All right, so how are you?
Some sort of garden.
Yeah.
Yeah. And when I was reading this.
Right. Yeah.
So, I mean, who the hell else is gonna change again?
Oh, good.
I work. Oh, sorry.
Okay.
I,
Like he's got the focus done.
No, he's got this fever, he can't get rid of.
It was a
Can I do anything about it?
You can say that, it's his mom.
It's true. I'm confident about it. I wouldn't have left the house if I thought it was, because no one else is home.
Right.
That's what I'm going with.
You're sick tomorrow. You won't be there.
That's what I'm going
Are you in there running?
You know, you've seen me every time I'm trying to make ideas, they're out of it, I'm like, oh, I'm not doing it.
I texted him, I'm gonna be late on Saturday. Go get a driver's license. I do. My birthday was on New Year's Eve, so I
No, I
haven't
just,
renewed
I
it.
think I know the area, but he was, he was wrong,
yeah, that's.
He was so funny with the
Requested me. I'm not ready for that. And I'll look fine, I'll have
Anyway.
Try to get this meeting.
We had one of the nicest lodges that we had.
Are you sure?
It's really pleasant, and the food is great, but it's also just
Yeah,
Give
sure.
me one of
I have no idea. So, if you put it together, it's a done job. I can't imagine you will have zero people. So if you had some people like,
So there was.
but so she's trying to.
We're still going.
This weekend, right?
Oh, yeah, there is. There's planning meeting
At the same time?
on Sunday. And the first big meeting.
I'm actually kind of hungry, so I was hoping.
I can make something happen.
Right after we feel
I know.
Just get it on cold fire.
I'm just trying to understand.
Inappropriate words.
Just saw your 7th grade basketball team come back in the fourth quarter, win it in the last 10 seconds. After really not playing well.
Yeah.
I watched
They'll be done.
And I said,
And he's talking to Bear.
yeah, they've been, they messaged me quite a bit as far as well, and I'm just not,
Because the
I'm
fist
not
fight
in
at school
the.
was a little bit weird.
Well, you know what stress gets really amped up. Yeah, but anyway. I'm obviously, I love the one with my kid, but I love that. I love both of them. And they're such awesome friends. Yeah, it's neat. It really is. I know. So hey, of course, Dawn, I never got back to your thing, but.
There's still time.
I know.
I reopened it because.
Oh, you reopened the online one?
I did,
That is
yeah.
so much more my speed.
Good.
Okay, I'm gonna find the message and put it on the bench.
Yeah, ours was nice to you.
Cause I printed the other one and then I was like, I really feel like this is a group discussion kind of thing.
It is.
And I'm sitting here by myself and I got nothing.
And that's why I made the survey.
Okay, thank you. All right, well, thanks for listening to me about it, but, you know.
And you know, Bob's a.
Yay. All right. Shuffle back, not in front of me, when we're trying to talk.
So they're changing the live stream stuff again?
I think so, and I think that's what it said. I went looking
Well, the
for.
villagers got privacy because it was not a good change.
Well, Brian
The previous change was not a good thing, so I bet they're still trying to.
Hopefully it's not Village, it's like our town.
No.
Yes, the Google Village, which is the world. Yes, it wasn't a good thing.
Their YouTube community over the last 3 or 4 months, they changed how they monetize the YouTube videos. The YouTubers are not happy. Because it's not based on views and it's only based on like likes and like stuff like that. So like
Followers.
well, comments in the section and like likes, like active participation within the thing, not just views.
That's not gonna stop robots.
Well, I mean, that's what they claim it was for, but there's, you know, a lot of the YouTubers who use that as part of their income. The monetization awful.
All right, we're about ready to get started again.
So you're the president now, congratulations.
All right, take 2. All
The
right,
sequel.
But wait, there's more.
here we are at the January 12th, 2017 of Education meeting, and just to inform people who maybe didn't tune in sooner, we were here doing the organizational portion of the agenda, which began at 6:30. All right, so we are going to move into 1.5, the approval of the minutes for December 8th, 2016. Is there a motion?
I'll second.
All right, anybody have any issues with those minutes?
Really good.
All right. What a great movie.
I would like to hear that. All right, that's not my strong
All right.
Emotional.
Is that, who do we need to roll call, right?
Aida,
Yes.
Sean,
Yes.
Sylvia,
Yes.
Steve,
Yes.
Ann.
Yes.
All right. Communications, 5.1. Anybody have any communications? No? All right. I'd like to recognize members of the audience who want to address the board. Eli, are you here to address us?
I am.
All
He's
right.
here to address us.
Jacob, can you go tight on the face here?
It kind of freaked me out when we got back, but you know.
Totally different person.
Hi, I'm, thank you, Madam President, I'm Eli Hurwitz, the Yellow Springs Education Association President. And I would just like to recognize, now that we are at kind of the psychological midpoint of the year, though not numerically, the hard work that our teachers have put in this first half towards making the students of our community stronger, smarter, and a brighter future for our country.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah. All right. We are moving on to 5.3, Schools in Action. We are going to introduce a new staff member. So,
I'm going to start and pass the baton to Tim. So this is Shannon Morano. I think the whole board had a chance to meet Shannon already. But Shannon is taking on the role of our middle and high school counselor now. And so for the remainder of the school year, we're really excited about her doing. She's worked at Planned Parenthood for how many years?
15.
15 years. This is kind of a big deal for her, you know, to take this step to come here. A tough decision, but I think it sounds like she really wants to be in school counseling and in that role and long term for her career. And so I think that's a good move, you know, you go for it. That's what you want to do with your future and your career. And so I applaud that decision, and certainly it's great for us, and we appreciate you being here. And so I'm going to pass it on to Tim, but then when he's done saying, he wants to say, you'll have a chance to, if you'd like, to address the camera and the community and say anything you'd like. You know,
Stand over there.
Yeah,
Yes.
well, if you get, I guess, yeah, sounds like you have to.
Okay, that's the only way everyone can hear you.
That's right.
Okay.
All right, TK.
So we're really delighted that Shannon's able to join us. She has 4 days, it's a real streak going now.
Without an injury, right?
So, and it was exam week, so it was a quiet week at Yellow Springs High School in McKinney Middle. But I think we had some strong candidates interviewed for the long-term sub position, and we're looking forward to a really great transition to Shannon. Coming in kind of a tough spot, replacing a counselor. It's one thing to kind of put in for a teacher who might be on paternity or maternity leave. It's another thing entirely when it's a school counselor. And so she's asking all the right questions. She seems really insightful, and I think we're, fingers crossed, we got ourselves a good one. So we're really delighted that she's here, and now.
I wasn't
If
sure.
you
I didn't know I was
if
going
you'd
to
like
have to
Shannon.
talk. But I'll just tell you a little bit about myself and why I'm really glad to be here. And I was just sharing this story a little bit with Ann. I do have 15 years experience at Planned Parenthood. I started out as a health educator, actually in some of your classrooms with Kevin O'Brien as a health teacher about 10 years ago. And I love that job. I love talking to young people and talking with them about really sensitive things, and they just seemed to sort of just tell me all of their stuff. And they just told me it, and so it was really amazing because I got to have like a really intimate relationship with them, but it was really short. And so after I spent a lot of time in classrooms, and then I started training other health educators, what I realized that I really loved about training them was making sure that people did it right. and did it right by the young people, and were respectful and non-judgmental and honest and open with them, and that part of the training that I loved, and then I missed being with the young people. So I left for a couple of years, and I got my master's degree in school counseling. And then I was kind of choosy about where I wanted to go, and I didn't really, I applied for one school counseling job, and then I thought, I'm gonna wait for the right school district, and then in December, sky opened up, and there was an opening here, and it was, I had to do it. There was no way that I couldn't do it. So I threw my hat in the ring. I am really passionate about young people. I love them. Not everybody gets along with adolescents, but I do. And I get them in a way that doesn't make me immature, but like keeps me sort of like, you know, I try to stay current with them, and I am so happy to be here, and I sort of just took a leap of faith and said, like, this is something that I really need to do. And I appreciate you letting me land here for a little while, and so I'm going to do the very best job that I can. And day 4, as you said, it's very different than the job that I have done for the beginning of my career, but I'm happy and I'm excited and I'm ready. So I'm gonna keep doing it.
Great.
So thanks for having me.
Yeah, thank you.
And I can say, after working with Shannon at Planned Parenthood, you made a good choice.
Excellent.
Thank you.
Well, and Shannon, typically you don't have to stay any later than now. You can leave if you want, so don't worry about it. It's not, everybody does, it just kind of leaves at some point, so feel free to do that.
Well, those people have already left.
I know, I feel last one.
Eli's still here.
You're
I just
certainly
got here.
welcome.
Gotta put in some
Certainly
time.
welcome. All right, we are moving on. Well, again, welcome. Thank you for being here.
Thank you.
Yeah. 5.4, the administrative reports. Who's going to go first?
I can go first.
Okay.
So we're back after a really long extended break, it felt like. It was a nice winter break, and kids jumped right back into it, got into routines, and I think we're ready to go. They wanted to come back. They were missing their teachers and their friends, and so we've had a really smooth start here in January. A couple of things I wanted to talk about. Really excited about hearing that Jody Pettiford won this award, the Ohio Civil Rights Commission Excellence in Teaching Diversity Award. It's a very long title, but I think that she really feels honored. It was a surprise. I didn't tell her I was nominating her for the award. And then when I got the email that she won, I was like, okay, so how can I surprise her with this? And then an hour later, she walks down, she's like, what did you do? You know, and yeah, she got the email as well. And so it's really a well-deserved honor. When I saw the description, I couldn't have thought of anyone else that I know of that fits it so well. And you know, she's so passionate about, you know, civil rights and you know, the history of this town, and just making sure that she's teaching social studies with passion and using real life examples. And so it's great. I'm really excited for her, and I can't wait to go and be a part of that ceremony. And it's well deserved, like I said. Other things, you know, we are really in a place where we're looking, what's, you know, the second half of the year look like. We want to make sure that we're really focused on, you know, PBL and all those great things that we do, but we're also really focused on our kids' academic progress and really, you know, making sure that they have super solid foundations in math, reading, writing. And so, you know, right now we're kind of taking stock of where kids are. We did get our 3rd grade results, and you know, the percentage up there it's not a surprise, because, you know, often, you know, from the fall to the spring, kids make lots of gains. And you know, talking to some other principals around the region, it sounds like a lot of folks really struggled with this test in the fall, and that we actually did well compared to a lot of other districts around us. It's the first time our 3rd graders took a test online, which was pretty significant. And it, you know, so anyway, beyond that, we are really focused on trying to make sure that we know where all of our kids are, we know what progress they're making, and what we want them to accomplish by the end of the year, regardless of the state test, but, you know, it's one of the metrics we use. So lots of discussions around that. We're having meetings with all the grade levels next week to make some plans and make sure that we're thinking about intervention and enrichment opportunities for students. So that's important work that's happening. And then last but not least, Maya Taylor, third grade student. You might not be able to see her drawing there very well, but it's this tiger safety art contest that a lot of kids participate in every year. She won, so that means that she will have her piece of artwork featured on one of the months in the calendar, and it's really exciting. That's a thrill for kids, and it really gives them a nice boost with their art and passion for that.
Creating their portfolio.
Exactly. Yeah, already winning things. So anyway, it was about running outside and calling 911 if there's a fire. So those are things that are happening right now.
That's great. Thank you. Welcome back.
Hello, Yellow Springs High School, McKinney Middle School. You have the board report in front of you. Three things just that I think are worth mentioning. Number one, we had our exhibition night right before we went into winter break. If you had an opportunity to come, I thought it was really great. I think we're maturing nicely in terms of what we're exhibiting, and in terms of not only the quality of the work and the rigor kind of climbing up, but just the kind of the novelty of what's being presented in a sense. So there was nary a trifold anywhere you looked. And I think that actually, it's kind of one of those things that, I say it sort of tongue in cheek, but I do mean it. That here we are trying to figure some things out and how to present things in something other than a sort of a traditional science fair template. So I thought there were some really interesting things there, and teachers are still experimenting, and students are still experimenting, trying to figure out. Every exhibition night is a little bit different, and but I thought it was really terrific. In fact, I think it was our best one yet. Two kind of nice honors. One, a student-centered one. Lauren Chavez has been accepted to speak at the TEDx Youth Dayton one. This is as you remember from last year, we were one of 5 schools who helped kind of get it off the ground. We had 3 speakers. Now we opened it up to the entire Miami Valley region for any student age 14 to 19 could apply, and they went through kind of a process similar to the regular TEDx Dayton piece. So they've been kind of working with some of their own speaker mentors, but we're really pleased and proud of Lauren speaking at this one. I think it's March 3rd at Wright State somewhere, the Student Union, I think, same place as we had it last year. So great news to know that even though we're not really intentionally supporting it in the way that we did and trying to get it off the ground, we still have students who are interested in it and getting approved to be in it. Yes?
How do you get tickets for that?
I've read the fine print.
Should I break mine now?
It's,
Let me hear what you have.
So a lot of tickets are being held for the speakers'
Yeah.
families, and then I saw somewhere 250 are being provided to either the schools of,
Okay.
but it doesn't look like as easy a ticket to get as it was last year.
Okay.
And we had I think 300 students who went last year. So
Okay.
I don't know. I'll look at my email and I'll forward it on to you as you're interested.
Thanks.
And then the last piece, another academic honor. I don't know that it was quite as intentional as Matt's leadership with Ms. Pettiford, but we were named to the College Board's Advanced Placement Honor Roll. I wouldn't have known it because we never got any notification, but I saw it on Facebook. And so for us, right? It's fun. So we have been trying to expand access to advanced placement. 3 years ago, we put in AP Calculus, and if you remember, our math department, they really want to do well, all the time. And so they were a little bit anxious about putting it in there before they thought that they were ready, and before they thought the curriculum had matured enough to make students be at an academic readiness level. But they worked hard, and so that course, plus we do have the AP seminar that started last year. Those courses have kind of expanded our AP offering, which is already probably bigger than any other school of our size that I know of.
Punching above our weight, as Steve likes to say.
That's exactly right. So we added courses, and we're adding more students into it who are still getting a 3 or higher on average. So expanding access, with at least maintaining the same high scores or perhaps increasing them. As you know, with a small student body, it kind of fluctuates, but we're fluctuating nicely above at a real nice high standard. So it's a nice honor. I didn't know it existed. It's our first time. We're one of 32 districts in the state who made it, one of 6 in the Southwest region, and that puts us like top 5%, 4% of the state.
So I think there's like 15,000 high schools in the country or something of that nature, between 15 and 20, and only 400 got selected to, this honor, so that's kind of a big, and if, how many did you say in Ohio again?
32.
32, there's 600, there's at least 800 high schools. There are 800 high schools in the state of Ohio.
Wow.
So 32 of 800 in Ohio. And the other thing I want to say about this honor, which I think is, I just thought about as you were speaking, is for those of you board members who have been here as long as our tenure's been, for 6, 7 years, you remember what those AP scores were like years and years ago, and they weren't particularly great, and so this is a pretty, amazing honor given, number one, where our scores have been in the past, and then number two, that we are in a very traditional sort of measurement. We're doing really well given our deeper learning project-based pedagogy. So I think, if anything, this is an indication that what we're doing with project-based learning is clearly not having a negative impact on our academic success of our kids, and may actually be aiding us in doing better on some of these more traditional assessments going forward.
So, very quickly, I just want to underscore Jody Pettiford's award. I think Jody was the first person we met when we moved to Yellow Springs all these many years ago, and so when I saw that she had won this, I just, perfect. It's just great. And then I wanted to say about exhibition night that what really struck me was the real growth in the way students present themselves as opposed to the first couple of these that we ran. They're professional now. They're confident now in a way that they weren't before. And that's related to the other thing I really noticed was how many of them were prepared to critique the work that they had done. I don't want to say complain about it necessarily, but what went wrong? What didn't we like about this? What should we have done differently? And I think that was really great as well to interact with students. That's what I noticed.
Yeah, I would just like to piggyback on that. I noted, first of all, the flow of the evening was so much better than it's been previously. I mean, that was incredible to get through the hall. I mean, sometimes it's just overwhelming. There's so much to take in, and so many possibilities of interactions and stuff. And this felt like it was actually very manageable to do that. And in part, I think I was able to engage more deeply with the students because I didn't feel like I had to move along because everybody else was moving along and stuff. So that was very noticeable and very helpful to me. But I also believe that my interactions with the students had some more depth, and I've been frequently touched and moved by the energy that the students really put out. But I also noticed what Steve is talking about, that they just offered up, well, this didn't work out so well, instead of me saying, well, so what didn't work well, or what was your experience? That just sort of came as part of their presentation. So I was really, and the clarity, I think I mentioned it too. So anyway, yeah, it was very good.
Can I just, one more comment? I don't think we've said this before publicly at a meeting, but I think we've said it, I say it a lot, but I want to make people know. Eli has, from the beginning, as he's in the room, I'll mention it, he's been the one in charge, wholly responsible.
Wholly responsible is
Well, no,
a large
maybe
stretch.
not largely responsible for the planning and the organization around the flow, around the program, around the sort of event where people are, and getting that, the organization around exhibition nights has been his charge and his burden, and I really appreciate it because it's not an easy thing to do. And it's corralling everything and trying to make it all organized, and so he's done an amazing job. Never once complained about it. Never once said no. And I really appreciate it.
I would like to celebrate the teachers that they really have picked up kind of an idea of what is starting to work and what doesn't work. And they've really, I know there were great meetings here and great meetings at the high school that helped drive the direction of the exhibition nights.
So the camera probably didn't catch that because of the speakers, but Eli just said that he really wanted to thank the teachers as well, because we've gotten so much better with our projects, and the quality has been amazing, and it's really driving exhibition night. Is that fair?
I heard him take all the credit for himself.
Will not take
And I concur with his assessment.
Well, thank you, it was obvious and noticeable. It made a difference.
Good.
All right,
All right.
moving on, right, to the report of the Director of Advancement Things. I did get that one.
Hang on a second. All right, here we go. All
Oh,
right.
That's the end.
So click back.
Get to the good
There we go.
It's like reading the last page of the book first.
Yes.
Just give me a nod when you're ready.
Yeah, let's do it. Next one. Sorry. I don't follow directions very well. Okay, so these are the 3 goals that were established this year. First, we have to get the infrastructure together for the advancement office, because it's a ground zero kind of operation. The goal was to raise $150,000 this year through an annual campaign and grant funding and any other way, by hook and by crook, and then to set the stage for an endowment fund. So with regard to the advancement infrastructure, I'm just going to update you on what's happened since the last time that I presented to you. I have convened a development committee and continue to recruit members to it. I think we're at 5 members now. I do have a Miller Fellow who has been providing support a lot with administrative tasks, but also helping with social media aspects of our marketing and outreach, and that's been really helpful. I joined the Association of Fundraising Professionals, so that should open up a lot of contacts and other resources that will help me develop in this role. Helped organize 2 alumni events, including our first member meeting and also the alumni basketball game. So just trying to outreach to alums and let them know about the Alumni Association and get their names in my database. And we also held a brief little meeting with the seniors too, just to let them know that, you know, they will be de facto entered into the Alumni Association upon graduation from high school. So we're kind of priming the pump right now with the seniors. I've been working a lot with the Mills Lawn PTO, and I'm kind of spearheading the relaunch of the PTO at the high school, because I feel like those are going to be my volunteer base. You know, those are the folks who are, you know, engaged and already doing a lot of fundraising, and so I want to kind of leverage that energy and their expertise, because they've been doing a lot, especially at Mills Lawn. So right now my database has over 700 names, and which I think is a great number, and I'm hoping to increase that in the second half of this school year. I'm really going to start pushing the alumni piece a lot more. The first semester I was really focused on getting the annual campaign kind of up and running and off the ground, and I'm going to talk a little bit more about that in a second. So kind of things that are still in progress, still working really closely with the Community Foundation to kind of coordinate our approach to how we interact with donors, how we share data, you know, who's doing the thanking, when, and that kind of thing. It's been really super helpful to have Gina Marie Cox as their executive director, because we were working closely together anyway on other things. So she's been a great help, and I think that that's going to be really helpful to have her as a full-time employee there, especially in my position, because I feel like I'm going to need that kind of expertise and support from the Community Foundation in order to lay the groundwork for how this is going to work going forward. As I said, we've been working with the Alumni Association to onboard the seniors this year, and we're also planning reunions and other activities to try to engage our alums. And then, so I'm trying to herd cats. So we've got all this fundraising going on all over the district, and it's like, how do we consolidate this, or how do we, or maybe we don't, and how do we make it so that we're not over asking the same people or just over asking our parents, and how can we cover some of these needs in other ways so that folks just don't get burnt out on the fundraising piece. So that's going to be a key facet of the second semester as well. And I forgot to mention that I'm working with a consultant to kind of help me refine some of these processes and really make sure that we're following best practice. Next slide.
Okay. Can I just ask a quick question? Database of 700 names is what percentage of what you think the total is? What's the outer bound?
I've heard that there should be 2,000 alums, which I think might be, I don't know, I guess that's correct. But so I don't know. I mean, I think we barely scratched the surface on the alums. My wish would be to get that there's that person for every class who holds the names. There's always that person who's the organizer of the reunions or whatnot. So that's my plan next, is to find those people and then get them to give me the names and try to incorporate them that way, because there's still a lot of room. And a lot of those names are our current parents too. And some of them are community members who have donated to the annual campaign. Yes?
To your credit, that little light type
Yeah.
on the bottom is really important.
Yes, thank you so much, because I totally forgot to say that. So the consultant that we've been working with, there are two of them who are kind of reviewing what I've done so far and kind of helping me make an action plan going forward. And their direct quote was, "We rarely experience clients that have done so much in such little time." So that was really encouraging to me, because sometimes you feel like it's an uphill battle and you're never really getting anywhere. But putting together this infrastructure is no small feat. I mean, it's a lot of work, and like I said, it's a lot of herding cats and trying to make connections and things. So so I'll give myself a little pat on the back.
So speaking of infrastructure, where do you live? I mean, where's your office?
Here in Mills Lawn.
Where?
Right by the cafeteria. There's a little hallway that goes up before you get to the gym.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. You want to stop by and see me?
I might.
Okay, you should. Okay, next slide.
So let me echo what Don just said about the consultant. We just met with Linda Butler and
Shelley
Outlaw, and they were kind of they belabored this quite a bit on and on. It was so great to hear such really positive. If I talk about 5 or 7 minutes about it, and how they feel like Don is pretty incredible, well ahead of the game in terms of relative to other people doing the same work. And they really wanted to emphasize it, I think, so that I'm aware, and I think probably so you're aware as well as the board, that where she is she's really smart with what she's doing with her time, and starting from where we are to where we are now, is doing a really great job in that way. So.
Great. Well, I guess if I could comment on that, Linda and Shelley are seasoned experts with decades and decades of experience. So when they make comments like that, absolutely, they are true and accurate and a reflection of the work that you're doing.
Thank you.
All right.
Okay, so the goal of raising $150,000, that's still an ongoing effort. But these are the results from the annual campaign, and I was actually really pleasantly surprised with the results that we got, because I really just targeted parents of current students and community, just a community-wide mailing. It wasn't a hard sell, it was really soft touch, and to get these kind of results with just a gentle ask, hey, we need help. I mean, and this is the response that we got in a month or two, and I thought that was really, really encouraging. And I think that the more experience I get with running the annual campaigns and the more strategic that I get, especially as I get data and I can be more strategic in my planning, I think that it's only going to go up from here. But we had a lot of $50 donations and $100 donations, in that range. Fewer above $100. I would say that our average was about a little over $100, which I thought was a really great number too. And we did get a couple of gifts that were over $1,000, but one of those was street fair tacos. that was my husband's sweat equity that he put into there, so that was really sweet. Yeah, and then I'm trying to remember where the other one
Well,
came
thus
from.
I contributed indirectly.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Those are some good tacos, I know.
That was really good
I know,
food.
thank you. All right, next slide. So this one just shows who the donors were. So, oh, that's right, I forgot about Richard's art show where he donated all of his sales from his artwork to the YSPSF fund. So that netted about $4,000, which was really helpful. Yeah, we got some parents, we got a lot of community members, we even got alums, mostly those who live in town. And then we got the admin board development committee. Those are, the folks that I asked here around this table to donate. And then we got one matching gift from a foundation. Yeah, so that was really helpful. So that's kind of
So again, can I just ask a percentage question? So 99 out of how many do you think you sent out?
Yeah.
The yield rate here.
Yeah, that's an excellent question.
Okay.
It was a lot.
Well, I mean, 99 looks
Yeah.
pretty good to me, but I don't know how many.
So so community-wide, I sent out there's probably about 2,000
Okay.
letters that went out, maybe 2,500, and then for the school, how many families do we have? Like 500, 600?
Well, that's
Over
pretty
700?
family she's talking about.
Yeah, households, something like
500,
that.
I'd say
Yeah,
5 to 6.
yeah. So it's a pretty small percentage.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. All right, next slide, please. All right, so other revenue streams, we got the DLTC. So to date, that's the Deeper Learning Training Center. That's when the folks from other districts come to visit our schools and see PBL in action. So we've already got some of those visits under our belt, and the amount pending are the registrations that we have for the rest of the school year. So that's been a really great experience. People are just showing up all the time and wanting to come to these visits, and I have to tell them we don't have space, and so they'll just schedule out a couple months. I mean, we're almost all booked through the rest of the school year, so there's been a lot of interest for that. Yeah, it's been great. We've got some in-kind contributions from folks. We had a parent who donated some equipment to our makerspace, some electronics equipment. I think we're still waiting for that to arrive, but that was something that they committed to doing. And then we had some ad space in the YS News that we used to promote exhibition night. And then we've got Spiritware at Street Fair. We made some money at Street Fair. We got the online store going, and basically we just get like a percentage of the sales from the online store. And so that was just from the month of December, maybe November and December. In terms of grants, we were offered a grant from the, is it William and Dorothy Schluter Donor Advised Fund, in the amount of $2,000. So that was supposed to be deposited directly into the YSPSF, but we're just trying to figure out some of the logistics and the requirements. How do we actually meet the requirements of the grant, and how does that work if it gets put into the account? And so we're working with the Community Foundation to kind of cross those T's and dot those I's before we actually count it as like in our account. I'm still waiting on the Lowe's grant, which would provide outdoor classroom supplies and materials for Mills Lawn. The ODHE grant for the STEM project, which is really a career pathways kind of a initiative, which Tim is kind of using as his PBL project this year. Is that true? He tuned it. We're still waiting to hear about the funding for that. We're kind of negotiating with the funder right now. And then we've just got other grant opportunities in the pipeline that we're going to be working on, like Martha Holden Jennings Foundation. And Linda Butler has given me like a whole slew of grant opportunities that we could pursue. Next slide, please. So in terms of setting the stage for the endowment, we're just going to continue to engage our alumni and try to, identify and cultivate some major gifts prospects. So in addition to really focusing on ramping up our alumni relations, we are going to be looking at our donor data and trying to identify those folks who might be a prospect for a major gift, or at least an upgraded gift from what they gave at the annual campaign. So another note from the consultant is that $150,000 in 1 year is pretty ambitious, and that it's more likely after 2 years that you would reach this goal. So I just kind of wanted to throw that out there. And now that the annual campaign is done, they suggested that I really focus on major gifts, because that's where you get the most bang for your buck. Next slide. Other duties, I've been coordinating the visits for the DLTC. I've been representing the district at the chamber board meetings. I've been working really closely with the communications coordinator on a number of different activities, like the quality profile, the monthly newsletters. We put together the fall newsletter. I wrote a piece for that. So that communications and marketing piece is just so important to what I'm doing that it's really helpful to have a communications coordinator that I can work with to kind of get those things done, because it's a really easy way to stay engaged with your constituents. And then right now I'm designing climate surveys for our parents and our staff and our students that are going to be administered district-wide, hopefully this month. I'm just pulling on my experience from my old career as a researcher and survey developer to kind of put these together. So it's kind of fun for me, and hopefully it'll yield some really, interesting data that we can use, not only to identify some areas where we might want to pay attention to, and if there are issues that are coming up in terms of with our parents or maybe with our staff, but really to get some great data that we can brag about in our next quality profile or on social media and say, our staff are super engaged and our students are, really motivated to learn. So we're kind of hoping for those results, and we'll see. And that is my update. If anybody has any questions.
Let me kind of comment a little bit about the climate survey real quick. So this is really big, because what it will help with, so we're taking the old surveys and we're Dawn's applying her expertise and her knowledge, and also trying to work some new language in that reflects, new questions in that reflect what we're interested in terms of project-based learning work, and getting feedback about that, as well as results that will help us with our quality profile and improve what we put out next year for the quality profile, and more data points, and that would be a little bit more quantifiable for the community to see. So that's sort of a piece of that, and it's a lot of work, and so she's been working pretty hard on that recently, and she's also doing some focus groups really on it, getting people to take them, pilot them, and then give her feedback on them, and then she's going to make alterations before we even put it out there. So she really is putting a lot of effort into that particular process. The DLTC, I want to add some comments about that. The visits from the DLTC, coordinating visits, but also she's working with the Columbus, Franklin County, I guess it's the Central Ohio ESC, on that deal that we have with them, where they're actually advertising a lot, collecting the dollars and working with us. And right now she kind of brokered something with them around us presenting a critique workshop up there in Columbus, and so we kind of have a deal now with that, and March, I think, as well. And so that'll be a cool thing. So that'll be the first workshop our staff goes out this year and does. Working with Elizabeth Simon's kind of one of the main folks behind that. So, sorry, just want to throw that out there. Any questions the board has?
So the money from YSEE, so that's not reflected in here, is it? Not those grant dollars that we receive from.
That's additional.
That's additional. I mean, it would be interesting just to see the total funds received from outside organizations, outside funders, and as a part of your report, in terms of just a comprehensive view, because just looking at these numbers, this is almost $100,000. When you put it all together, the ODHE is the big one spread over 2 years, so you can have that if you want. But it's obviously, a lot of additional resources are being brought into the district. And so this is a great report and a clear sign of success. And you're right, you're just starting. So just imagine the possibilities. 50 years from now. Over the next 50 years.
Lord willing, I should say.
I seldom agree with anything Sean says, but I think he's quite right about this.
Wonderful. Thank you.
When you said you're negotiating with the ODHE,
Yes.
what does that mean?
Well, it means that one of our partners that we collaborated with on this grant, kind of had some relationship with the ODHE and has been kind of going back and forth because we got some feedback, and so she's been kind of pushing back and saying, well, that wasn't in the RFP, and so, yeah, so that's what I mean about
Would you just for
negotiating.
the camera say ODHE?
ODHE, yes, I'm sorry.
No,
Yeah,
no.
Ohio Department of Higher Education.
Thank
Yes, for the Ohio Department of Higher Education, yes. So that's where the negotiation part comes in. Mhm.
And if it goes through, Tim will have his dream, and we'll have food trucks in our community.
Better than that, there'll be food trikes. 3 of them. We'll be selling tacos at every street fair, mobile.
Or Rwandan coffee.
Or ceviche and Rwanda coffee.
Yeah, that was good coffee.
It was good.
And so what are the dates by which we would know for sure about the Lowe's and the?
Well, Lowe's is supposed to be this month.
Okay.
So I'm hoping to hear something like any day now. And then ODHE, we have a call, we just recently, it's Tuesday. We scheduled a call for Tuesday where we're going to get some feedback. So, they've been gracious enough to give us an opportunity to revise our application based on their feedback. So we're hoping to be able to satisfy their requirements this time.
Thanks.
I also want to say, I think Martha Holden Jennings Foundation, the grant we're looking at will help us create an entire professional development seminar, workshop here in town, potentially at a venue in town, and bring in hundreds of people, or maybe 100 people or so, to come and see what's going on. Where our teachers present a one-on-one kind of workshop to folks all around, and the money would help fund people coming and being part of that, as well as other things. And so I think it's good. It's pretty much, if we have pretty good indication that we'll get that grant once we put it together. And so I think that's going to bring in another 20 to 30 for sure. And then the other thing I think that's out there is, I'm not going to name the funder because we probably shouldn't do that right now, but there's another one out there that's a local foundation that is very interested in working with us and could help us potentially with some of our needs as well. So,
That's great.
yeah.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Treasury report, 6.1, financial report.
We'll talk about the boring money, fun money. I paid back the $6,230 that we had advanced to the lunchroom at the end of June. I really wanted them to get some cash flow before I paid that back, but when we have December and such a half a month of receipts for the cafeteria, then it really gets in the red in December, so it wasn't the best time to pay it back, but there really is no good time, and it's pretty much breaking even or losing money. Not much happens in December. I don't have a lot to report on. I did have several investments come due in December that I turned over into new investments, and it's the 3 on the bottom of where I list out the current investments. So I did 2 at 1 year. No, it's only the 2 at the bottom. I think I only reinvested $500,000 because I'm waiting for tax money to come in this right now, and then I'll do some more investing. But the rates were much better. They're a year out. I got 1.4 and 1.5. So I was very happy about that. And I'll just the other ones, I've got some coming due in the middle of 2017, and hopefully the rates will keep getting better. I'll just keep turning those over while we have the cash flow. So still working on that. I would like to, as soon as I can get my new assistant up and running, I'd like to do a budget revision. We just had a lot of changes this year, so I would feel more comfortable if we talk about it now rather than in May when I do the 5-year forecast update. So hopefully for maybe March, I'll have a budget revision to bring to you and just kind of discuss some of the things that have changed for the year. We just had a few things here and there, and nothing major, so I'll just talk about it when I do that budget revision. But the only other thing I'd like to talk about is the tax levy that we have on that you're going to approve right now. Just a reminder that the reason that it's 8 years is because that aligns it with the one that we just did for 10 years, so they'll expire at the same time. And hopefully we can combine them into the one super levy 8 years from now. So,
We're making those t-shirts now.
Small, insignificant.
Teeny weeny.
The barely noticeable.
Jacob just bought a house, so it's not good news for Jacob.
That's great. It's not gonna increase his taxes, you know? We'll get to that later in the agenda.
The explanation of that, yeah.
So that is on the agenda for your approval, and that will get the process started. This is just a resolution of necessity saying that we need to keep this money. And then when we have our meeting at the end of the month with the architects, we will put on the resolution to proceed, so we don't have to have a special meeting. And then the next day, I will take all of that information to the Board of Elections so that they can get everything on the ballot for us for May 2nd. It's a really early election in May this year, so we'll get that done. So that concludes my report.
All right, thanks. That moves us into 6.2, the emergency tax levy. Do I have to read that? I forget. Did I read that or-
No, the actual full language is on the drive, and this is just a summary. It's everything I just said to you.
Right, okay, great. So, is there a motion?
So,
Is there a second?
And
Second.
Okay, roll call.
Sean,
yes.
Sylvia,
Yes.
Steve,
Yes.
Ann,
Yes.
Aida.
Yes, thanks. Thank you. All right, superintendent's report and recommendations, 7.1.
So I'm gonna go straight down to the levy renewal since we sort of just talked about that for a second. If I just share a few more comments on that, on what Don said. First of all, it's really what we're doing is we're looking at combining two emergency levies that are already out there. We're not talking about increasing, any taxes or anything of that nature. And so in order to do that, this is why we're looking for an 8-year renewal of this tax levy. So Dylan, let me be clear about that because I think this is an important point. We're not combining any levies right now. That's not what this will do. This is actually just lining them up so that they both expire in the same year. So that both levies expire in the same year. So then in 8 years from now, we could then go for one levy where they're both combined. So this is just a renewal of an existing one for 8 years, and eventually it'll line up. I guess it was 2025. So we'll go at some point to combine them together at that point in time. So right now we're just looking at a renewal. So it's an 8-year renewal, which is what makes it kind of an odd year, is to line them up. And it's a renewal of the $915,000 levy that we passed, I believe, for the first time 5 years ago, if you recall, when we were in major financial dire straits. And it's important to point out that I think that made a huge difference, that levy, to our finances and to our school budget. We wouldn't be where we are today if it weren't for the community approving that levy for the first time 5 years ago. And so here we are now asking to renew that levy, and we're not proposing any kind of an increase in tax collection, so we'll be collecting the exact same dollar amount as we did 5 years ago. We think that's a prudent and appropriate thing to do at this point. And so what we'll be doing is the board will soon have to approve another resolution, the resolution to proceed, once Don gets the data back from the auditor. So that'll be in a few weeks. And then we have a May levy, so we need to get a committee together. There will have to be a committee in the community that's ran by the community to promote the levy, to get out there and make sure folks come out to vote in May to support our schools again. And it is a renewal, and there's not going to be any new taxes.
Are there any new taxes?
There are no new taxes. I'll be saying that again in a month. So, in case you didn't just hear it. So that's all I have to say about that. The next thing I want to talk about, which I'm really excited about, every year in January, and you get one too, Ann, so, which is great. We have these very nice certificates that are drawn up, which really recognize our Board of Education members for the great work they do. And so I just want to say This is a great, great school board we work with right now. I have Dawn shaking her head. And I think it's, I don't want to disparage any other school boards. We've had great school boards in the past too, but I feel like this is couldn't imagine myself having a better school board than the one we have right now. I really couldn't, and so I appreciate everything you all do for us, and for me, and for Dawn, and the community has elected amazing people to lead our schools, and we really appreciate all the work they do, put in the time and the effort, and for very little in compensation. And so we, in times where, as much turmoil as we have right now in public, in the public, not just locally, but also nationally, it's really important for our public officials to be ethical and to do it for the right reasons and to be leaders. And I think that's what we have here. And so I appreciate all you have done, and I want to thank you. So thank you very much. Steve Kahn, you're first.
Come on down.
Congratulations. Sean Creighton, this is all alphabetical.
Oh, I thought it was in not ranked order.
You are the president. Thank you very much.
28 seconds.
And
This is a walk in the park compared.
And
You are on camera.
Aida. All right, thank you, Madam President.
I didn't say one.
Okay. Okay, so that's great. I appreciate everything they do for us and for our community and leading our schools.
Heck yeah.
There needs to be an award in your future, so we have to start working on that when they come across again. The facilities update, just a very quick discussion about that. So separately, we have this May levy we're talking about, which is an emergency tax levy renewal. Separately, we're having a discussion about facilities and taking a hard look at our facilities now. And then having, as you all know, we're working on trying to hire an architectural firm to come work with us on this idea of exploration of our facilities, looking at our current areas and our current buildings and seeing what the cost would be potentially to renovate the buildings, what kind of renovation costs are needed, what kind of repairs are needed, what happens if we do nothing over the next 10 years, how much of a cost will that be to us, which I think is increasingly significant, and I'll share a little bit more about that point in a moment. But additionally, what would it cost to build new buildings, if that was something the community was interested in doing? And so in order to know the answer to that question, this is a question that only the community can answer. And so it's important to hire architects and people who are well versed in this work to then lead a community engagement process. And it's going to be a year-long process, which will be really great. We'll have lots of opportunity for the community to engage, to iterate, to provide us with some thoughts and ideas about what we want our schools to be and represent for our community. And for the community to get feedback, give feedback, then get another iteration of based on their feedback, and then give feedback again, and then get another iteration of their feedback until we have something that's a clear direction of where we want to go with this work. I'm very excited about this idea. I'm excited about moving forward with this. So right now, over the last month, what has happened is, which is kind of a big step in the process, we got a committee together filled with community members, parents. We had an architect, an actual builder on that committee. We had from Green Solutions. We had several staff members, and myself and Don were all part of that committee, and we went around with a rubric and we reviewed all of the statement of qualifications that each of the architects sent in to us, and everybody independently rated them. We compiled the scores and ended up with our 3 finalists, and I guess I can announce them publicly now, who will be interviewed on January 25th here by our Board of Education. They'll have 30-minute interviews and then 15 minutes of question and answer from the board. And so the 3 finalists are, in no particular order, Annette Miller Architects, which is a firm out of Dayton who has a featured architect specifically who's been in contact with us that has an impressive resume of creating a really great lead school, specifically up in Milton Union, I think is the name of it. I'm not sure what area that is, but Milton, maybe some, anyway, up north. And Richley Architects, which you all have seen, come and do a presentation with us earlier, which is great. They're going to be here for that. Who's obviously also out of Dayton and has done significantly great work in the field and lots of experience with great schools. And actually the architect from Annette Miller used to work for Richley and was the architect and did that project while he was with Richley. And then the third firm is SHP, or Steed Hammond and Paul. And they're a really much larger firm, probably the largest firm in the group. They're out of Cincinnati, but they also have offices in Columbus. And they do a lot of work around here. They're actually doing work on several districts right now around us, actually. And has had a great, successful track record, especially in the engagement process, where they do a lot of good work with that within the community. And so we're thrilled. I think we have the right choices here. And as we go forward, the board will have to, we'll have to make some tough decisions. And as we said, the board will decide after the interviews who the top 3 ultimately were, and based on the feedback that I get, I'll then work with the top choice and try to negotiate a contract with them, and hopefully sooner than later we'll be able to propose that contract to the board for approval at a meeting, and then the board will approve that at the meeting. My hope would be to get that done by the February board meeting and get it approved in February, but there's no guarantee that that will happen. It may end up being March by the time that happens. But the good news is we have until potentially May of 2018. We've slated that time period. If we get to a point where the voters say we would like to put a levy on the ballot, that's sort of our targeted date right now, if that happens. And I say if because ultimately it's the community that decides whether we do that at all. And so we'll see where we go from there. I said earlier how a big question we got to ask ourselves, and we'll have to do research on, is what is the cost of doing nothing? Because there is a real cost with that. And just today, in fact, and yesterday, our custodial maintenance supervisor is gone on vacation this week. He goes every year this time of year, and
No fool he.
Yes. And so I get to do some of his duties while he's gone. And so today I had the opportunity to go to Mills Lawn, and yesterday there was a major leak that started to happen all over the section of the building where the library's in, and the art room, and Miss Barclay's room, and Miss Slow's room, and several areas around there that have starting to get the tiles again, doing some of the leaking and some of that nature. And so we had to really do some exploration, figuring out what that's all about. We think we have an idea of what this is. It's not as simple as just an issue with a leak in the roof. It could be a condensation issue related to, anyway, it's complicated. So the point is that while I was meeting with the roofing company who actually did the last piece of work on our buildings to talk more about this, I said, well, so you did patchwork on this part of the building. So clearly, when we do patchwork on something like this and we don't replace it, there's a lot of history with the roofs, that things that happen. When you do patchwork, you're assuming X, Y, Z are happening, and maybe there's something else that's a factor that you didn't really think about because you didn't see at the time, which is kind of what we're saying here right now, that it could end up costing the district money in repairs in the future. And so the point is that this roof itself, Mills Lawn, is going to need to be replaced soon. We're talking less than 5 years probably. And I asked him, I said, so given that Mills Lawn roof is going to need to be replaced within the next 5 years, what do you think the cost of that would be in today's dollars? And I was completely shocked what he said. I thought it would be half of what he told me. He's telling me that just to replace the Mills Lawn roof, $950,000 in today's dollars.
For real?
$950,000 just to replace the Mills Lawn roof.
So that's like a PBL then, I think?
Yeah.
That needs to be, what can we say?
Yeah.
Students up there.
And then if you look at the high school then, which
Yeah.
probably has a bigger footprint even than
Yeah.
the elementary, although we have the 3 stories, so it's maybe about the same. It's probably going to be, we can guess, around the same. So if you think, and that's probably the next 5 to 10 years, we're going to have to start looking at that as well. Now, the other option in some parts of the building is to try to do some patchwork. It's not going to be easy to do that in a lot of places, but you can see the problems that happen when you do that. And the patchwork isn't much cheaper, honestly. It will only last a few years, and in case which you'll have to replace. And so these kinds of things continue to happen. So really, we're looking at, if we replace both of our roofs in the next 5 to 10 years, or probably the next 5 to 7 years, we're talking about a significant expense that could total close to $2 million.
Right.
That's a lot of money to spend on roofing. In addition to that, there's other maintenance costs that we're having that are going to continue to grow and become a larger and larger issue for us throughout our buildings as we go forward. So I say that to point out that clearly when we look at this, we need to look at the ongoing maintenance costs, which are going to be significant. We need to look at the cost of renovation if we did that, which will be significant, and we need to look at the costs of building new. And then the community has to have all of that in front of them and make an informed decision about the direction we need to go in based off of that. But doing nothing has a cost with it. And I think it's important to communicate that with our community, because we don't always think about that. Any questions?
Many, but not for now.
So I just want to remind the board that meeting where the architects will come in, the company is on the 25th at 6 o'clock. We anticipate that meeting to run about 3.5 hours.
And that's a Wednesday.
Yeah. So I'd like to make sure to ask people to come well-fed and energized
Or bring
and
snacks to share.
willing to really take in this information, because it's going to be a lot of information. And we do have their proposals online to sort of prepare for, so I want to encourage people to take time to look at those beforehand as well. So yeah.
And then what was the deadline for the other meeting, February 1st, that might possibly be helpful for this?
Yeah, so also, Mario and I attended a workshop at the Ohio School Boards Conference that had to do with building projects. And out of that seminar came, which was with the Ohio Facilities Commission, this guy Frank Walker, his name kept coming up, and the Ohio Facilities Commission sponsors workshops by this guy who's a Harvard-based architect, and they said he was coming in sometime this winter, and so I contacted them, and he will be in Columbus on February 1st, and Mario and I believe, and Dawn are semi-committed. I'm committed to going, and they do a full day long sort of intensive on getting school systems to figure out what they're really looking for, and then sort of helping guide districts. So this kind of falls perfectly in line with, and also should give us more information and certainly educate me about this process a little bit more.
So I was going to check the date, because you had emailed it out to the rest of us. Is there a day by which we need to?
I think
sooner the better. He actually wanted me to try to have something. Glenn Rao emailed me personally and said he wants Yellow Springs to be there, because he's come to talk to us. He runs, I don't know if he runs the OFCC, but he's certainly the connector between the schools, K-12 schools and the OFCC. But we had a conversation about what we're interested in doing and what kind of work we're doing pedagogically in the district, and is really excited about the idea of the state potentially working with the schools on a project. And so, what was your question?
I'm trying to figure out if there's like a space.
Commitment, we have to make a
Yeah, I'm sorry, that's what I was getting to. Okay. So he wanted to hear something by Friday if we could, because I think, which is tomorrow.
Tomorrow, all right.
And so, I'm sorry.
That's all right.
there's a registration and there's only a finite number.
Yeah, that's
Spots.
kind of what I was thinking, so, okay.
It'd be nice to have, at least we could have 2 board members there, that'd be great.
And I know a couple other people already emailed back that they can't
Yeah.
do it,
Yeah.
so I was gonna check, see if I can, and I just wanted to know when you needed to know. So, okay, so tomorrow.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, and then I just have one question, which doesn't have to do with this, but sort of follow up last month when we had that issue around school and the safety issue.
Yes.
And sort of just to kind of get an update on
Great.
where you are with that.
Great, thank
at
you
this
for
point.
asking. So we've officially decided on a contractor to do the work. And so we've negotiated a price. I think it's going to cost around between $11,000 and $12,000 to outfit the front door here, the secretarial stations, the back door at Mills Lawn, So it'll connect directly with after-school care, which will be kind of nice, and then the high school as well. So that's kind of the cost, and that's what's involved. I really was looking for something that was more aesthetically pleasing, and honestly, after a lot of research, we couldn't find anything that wasn't like a specifically designed on a commercial level that had that appeal to it. So we did. I think what we have is going to work. It's going to be good. It should be fine. So that's going to be. I think we're probably talking about the next 3 weeks. It should be installed in all these places. So and I've been keeping the staff informed about that in the past few days. So.
Great. Thanks. Anybody else have anything? All right, thank you. Moving on to 7.2 to 7.3. So this is the first reading of a variety of policies and donations. So is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
All right. Anybody have anything about these?
So just very quickly, this anonymous donation, I can't give many details about this because I think they really wanted to be anonymous. But they came in and it was grandparent, is that right?
Yes.
Grandparent, one of our middle lawn students who was just kind of inspired by our schools and what's going on and just decided to give to the school district. So I was pretty excited about it. So.
Very nice. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, so roll call.
Sylvia,
Yes.
Steve,
Yes.
Ann,
Yes.
Aida,
Yes.
Sean.
Yes.
All right, moving on to the personnel portion of the consent calendar, 7.4 through 7.5. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Anything in particular you want to?
I guess we'd highlight Donna First's contract being up for renewal here. She's in the second year of her contract here and a second year of a two-year contract. And so just want to say it's been a pleasure to work with Donna. She's been amazing and really has, I don't know how to say, she's done so much great work for our district, and she's very operationally minded, she's organized, she does some, where I don't have strengths, she does. I think that really helps in a lot of ways.
She can remember what to do.
She can, exactly.
Tim said that wasn't so hard to do.
Yeah, oh, is that right? Yeah, I guess I walked right into that. So Donna's been great for us. She's doing much more than a special ed director has done in the past, and so I think rightfully so. Her title is Student Services Director, it's what we called her, however she wasn't hired under that. For whatever reason, that meeting we didn't officially, her title wasn't that, and so I think, but we've been calling her Student Services Director.
You don't mean that she's done more, you mean that her job encompasses more.
That's what I meant by that, yes,
thank
I'm so
you.
sorry about that, thanks for clarifying that. So yeah, it does encompass a lot more beyond, what a special ed director would do, and so we're excited about her continuing on, so I want to offer a 3-year contract for that, and she's done great work for Yellow Springs.
All right,
All right.
and we have a variety of people working on the musical.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, so roll call.
I was looking at the deadline for that workshop. It's January 25th. To register,
With the sooner the better.
because it's limited.
Thank you.
So we should do it soon.
Yeah.
Okay, Steve,
Yes.
Ann,
Yes.
Aida,
Yes.
Sean,
Yes.
Sylvia.
Yes.
All right, so now we are on board communications 8.1, which is basically the announcement around that facilities presentation and the interviews, which is January 25th. And then the 2020 update meeting that we have scheduled for the 8th of February at 6 o'clock.
Which I think is also a Wednesday.
Yep.
Yes.
That's
Okay.
right.
Thank you, appreciate that.
And then we'll move on to the Green County Career Center. Oops,
Do you
sorry.
want to actually comment about that 2020 update?
Oh, sure.
Aida?
Sure.
So when Aida and I talked about this, we want to make sure that we're clear about what the expectation is from the board for that night. We kind of felt like it might be nice to set it up so that we're focusing on, maybe we can do a couple things. So we can either do a comprehensive 2020 update to the community. We can do a comprehensive 2020 update just to the board, with the community coming in like a typical meeting would happen. We could do a update that focuses specifically on a couple things. As an example, I could just focus on project-based learning and one other or two other things that we think are critically important right now for the district to share with the community and get feedback from the community, and really have maybe a half-hour presentation with an hour and a half community discussion around this. Or I can focus something like that just for the board too. It all depends what we want to do. We thought it might be interesting to consider ways to engage the whole community in this, and I think it's going to be a lot harder to engage the whole community in discussion if we say we're having a 2020 comprehensive discussion. However, on the other hand, a 2020 comprehensive discussion I think is needed, specifically on areas that maybe a real focus on what we haven't yet accomplished, and then having discussions around what do we want to do with that over the next few years, and where do we want that to go in terms of our direction. So I mean, I guess I'm leaving it up. I'm just throwing it out there for you all. I think it would be nice, because we haven't had recently a community dialogue specifically around some of the work we're doing. I'd really like to hear some feedback from folks in the community about where we've been with the 2020 plan so far, like specifics, things around project-based learning, things around the DLTC. I want to hear what people think about some of the work we're doing there and get some feedback from folks about how things are going. So.
Go ahead. So you
No, I mean, I wasn't going to say anything important except please no Prezi, but y'all know that.
Please know what?
Please no Prezi.
That's a slide software thing that sort of alternate.
I think you're single. Wasn't that like 6 or 7 years ago?
You were single-handedly responsible for me no longer doing presents. I don't do them at all
They
anymore.
still pop up in my life and I can't get
So, Mari, you
But for a
essentially,
comment of substance now.
you just essentially asked for an agenda planning help.
Yeah, a little bit.
decision.
Well,
And, you know, so since the options are
Broad.
fairly different and wide, how best do we want to do that? Because to choose one necessarily goes in a very specific direction, so.
Are we going to make an effort to try to have that be well attended?
Well, that's,
another question. I mean, I think we always want it well attended, but the question is that we'll advertise, but I think the content matters in
Right.
terms of whether people will come or not, even if despite how much we advertise.
Right.
I guess I'm inclined, I mean, unless we want to take 15 minutes now among the five of us to hash this question out, I'm inclined to suggest that each of us make a suggestion to you about what each of us sees this meeting, and then you look at what you got and collate it.
Okay.
That's,
But could you send us something that kind of gives the different
Options.
options?
Yeah, because I wouldn't want to give my individual input, as you just described, sort of cold without discussion, because I'd kind of like to hear what I might be not thinking of while I'm saying, oh, I think it ought to be like this. But
I apologize. I didn't think this was going to be that kind of longer discussion. Really, I think, so let me just boil it down to two options. Number one, we have a comprehensive discussion of the 2020 plan, and we focus a lot on what we haven't achieved yet, because until now we focus a lot on what we have done.
right.
This is a good chance to focus on what we haven't done, because there's still a few things out there that we still have that we need to really think about whether we want to do. So that's option one. Either way, I'm going to try to get people to come. Okay. Option two is we focus on something much more narrow that we want to do, and it would probably be less of an update for the board and more of an update for the community. and getting feedback from the community on specific items like project-based learning, and I worked around
So
that.
what would be the selection process for what would be narrowly focused on?
So I would look at, so for sure, I think we look at some of the big things we're working on right now. So, if there was something else that you all felt like we absolutely, the community wants information on, you think, or you feel like we need to talk about to the whole community, then I can include that. So for sure, PBL is on that list. There might be some other items that we definitely want to include as well.
So, my quick and off-the-cuff reaction to that is, we've scheduled this essentially as a work session. And I value that time for us to be able to have those kinds of conversations. That's not necessarily the right venue to have big public presentations. It seems to me that the community would be very interested in some kind of a report out, some kind of a, but I'm not sure that a work session, we're sort of mashing two things together here that I'm not sure it works for me. That's my...
Yeah, I think that's a good point. It sounds like everybody else, at least a few of you agree with that statement. So maybe this is maybe what we're trying to do is actually combine two things in one in order to be efficient, but maybe that's not the right course of action. Maybe we need two separate things here that if we're really wanting to accomplish what we want to do.
I mean, only because, well, when I look at my calendar, it's on there as a board work session, but that,
Right.
you know.
Well, I mean, flip it around the other way. Let's assume for a moment that we take the option of discussing the things that we haven't attended to yet. When else, what other kind of venue would the five of us have to really engage with those questions and think about where we go, if not in a board work session, right? So I'm really loath to give up a work session or to turn it into a public presentation kind of a thing, because we don't have that many opportunities to have the discussions we need to.
I think that makes sense.
I would agree with all of that. I mean, even if the update, the first part, I mean, would be going through, we did this, that could be done quickly.
Okay.
But then dig in on the areas that we haven't focused on. And then also, I mean, we're 7 years into a 10-year plan. It took a year to develop that 10-year plan. So, you know, it expires, it's right around the corner, 2020s.
Yep.
You know, maybe even a preliminary discussion around
What happens next?
what happens after.
What happens December 31st, 2020?
Right, what are we gonna, how are we gonna continue this forward, or go through the process again, or evaluate
Earlier,
the success of our 10-year?
It was the class of 2020, it's not December 2020, right?
Oh, that's a great point. It was
So
originally
like
it was the class of
the end of
2020.
So we
May
have
of
to-
2020.
May.
Oh, yeah, that's May 2020.
I mean, not to
Right.
take away a few months from you, but
I mean, maybe it's too early to have that conversation, or maybe not, I'm not sure.
Yeah.
What comes next?
It sounds like what we're saying is that maybe the comprehensive plan, the 2020, is what we should do in the work session, and there will be a narrower public meeting
Maybe another time. So.
at another time.
Okay, sounds great. I think that's helpful. So, good.
All right. Green County Career Center report.
So we had our organizational meeting last night, and got all of that business sorted out, so nobody let me gavel. You know, I guess I would say that the large thing that looms over the Career Center right now is also a facilities question. Building is also in the same situation. It's sort of come to the end of its life. A lot of questions now about what to do, and complicated additionally because we continue to move ahead on some kind of a facility to do aeronautics, aerospace development. This, as I've reported out before, it would seem to occupy a real sweet spot in this region, because this is in fact a huge aerospace region and jobs are going begging because there just aren't enough trained workers. But it involved putting together an enormous number of political players in exactly the right order, massaging their egos in exactly the right way at exactly the right time. And this is a real challenge. Dave Deskins, the superintendent, is pedaling as hard as he can to do all the right things, but I still think it's somewhat up in the air as to whether or when this will actually happen. So that's my report from the Career Center.
Thank you. Okay, any other board member items? Okay, go ahead.
Oh, you had mentioned the positions that had to do with the musical.
Yeah.
So the musical, the cast list went up today, pretty exciting.
And the musical is?
Oklahoma.
Oklahoma.
And it's later this year, it's in April.
If I can add something on, and I shared in my weekend update with my staff, there are 75 students who are involved with Oklahoma through tech crew or auditions. That's just a gigantic amount. The theater program really seems to be gaining some momentum, and wow, I think it's in part due to Mario trying to work with a producer so that we can manage this, and trying to define roles in a directory that's really captured a lot of people's attention, including working in the performing arts program at our school, bringing middle schoolers involved. So, I mean, when you talk about what a program is that feeds people up, it seems to be kind of lightning in a bottle, to borrow an expression from Steve.
Well, yeah, and then having that teacher in the school and
Yeah.
creating a black box theater and.
Right?
Whoa.
Yes.
Yes, and that's a good point too. Lori Grown-App has had some incredible success in a very, very difficult position. And she's made it look easy, considering how challenging that. I mean, that was the one position I was most concerned about when we first decided to go with it this year. It's really challenging in most schools to add a third option beyond the instrumental music, and that's so she's done great work, I think, with that, and clearly is an indicator, how important theater arts is for our kids in our community. We know that, but we really know it. I think even more so now.
Yeah.
So.
All right, so I need to ask the board, we need to schedule an executive session regarding personnel issues, which we could just do on that February 8th. We could either add it on a little before or a little after, or come up with another time.
Or what about I guess we would want to try to add it to the January 25th.
I don't think so, no,
No,
because that's a
yeah.
long, it's gonna be
Okay.
very long and.
Or the February 9th, regularly scheduled board meeting, I don't know how much time we need.
Oh,
We're talking about 30
so
minutes.
February 8th is
Yeah, I
our
think.
work session.
I think 30 minutes ought to do it.
I would vote for 6:30 on the 9th.
Would that be better than, because
Me
the other
too.
one, the work session, we're already supposed to allow like a while for, and
I just couldn't do early, I mean.
oh, because it's a
maybe-
Thursday then.
No, the work session is a Wednesday,
Right.
But
and I might be okay to get here at 5:30.
do you want to
What
do the
about-
work session and stay out
What about
later?
on Thursday?
How about the Thursday board meeting? Oh, no, that's.
If we did it at 6:30 instead of 7, yeah, I could do
Okay.
that. I
Okay,
could do
Let's
that.
do that.
so that's the one on the 9th then?
Yeah.
Mhm.
Okay, half hour. Oh,
All right, so everybody's got that.
6:30 Thursday, February 9th.
And that's an executive session.
Bless you.
Okay. All right, I think that's it. Wow. Okay. Thanks, everybody.
Not bad.
Bill, you want to take that home for your notes? Special
All
honor
right,
about high school.
okay. So is there a motion to
I'll
adjourn?
take 2 of
So
them,
moved.
Mom. Yeah, thanks. What, Phil's got that?
Second.
Jinx.
He's good.
All in favor?
Yes. Thank you, everybody.
Thanks, everybody.
Between the treasurer and no Donna First.